Begin. So Parshas Acharei Mos begins with the Eibishter speaking to Moshe, and he addresses the fact that Nadav and Avihu passed away. After the death of Acharei Mos, Shnei Bnei Aaron, and the Eibishter gives Moshe to tell Aaron, all the mitzvahs of Yom Kippur. So Nadav and Avihu died. They died in Parshas Shmini. Now, what exactly they did is a major machlokes in Gemara and in Medrash. The famous Shittas Rashi and Chumash brings from Rabbi Lezer. Not so recently, but Nadav and Avihu. The Acharei Mos begins. Yeah. So, what did they do wrong? So Rabbi Lezer says, nothing really. They brought a fire. They put a fire on the Mizbeach. And they were supposed to, because even though a fire comes out from heaven, afapi that a fire comes out from a heaven, mitzvah lahadim and a hedjit. That means that when there needs to be a fire, you can't just rely on the heavenly flame. The kohanim actually have to put a fire on the mizbeach. The problem was they did it without asking Moshe. So they taught a halach in front of their teacher. Says Rabbi Lezer, if you teach halach in front of your teacher, you're chayiv misa. And in the hands of heaven, Bezdin won't kill you. Yechayiv Misa to the hands of heaven. And Taka, they died. Rabbi Shmuel says they walked into the Mishkan Shikr Dikr Heit. And in the Medrash, you have many other opinions. Some say it's the very fact they walked into the Kodesh Kedoshim unannounced, uninvited. Others say they walked...
They were never allowed in the Kodesh Kedoshim.
Right. Uninvited, meaning without the Aaron. Another opinion in Medrash is they walked in without the proper clothes. They were mechusar begodim. They were lacking their kohen clothes. Others say they didn't wash their hands in the kier. They did something wrong which deserved the death penalty, and they were killed. It's very unfortunate, very sad.
All of these would require Mishra B'Yishamayim?
Yeah.
Like the wrong begodim?
Yeah. Mechusar begodim,
yeah.
They have to wash their hands in order they shouldn't die. You said it's a nuclear power plant.
Isn't the Parshas shot that they brought a keteris or something that they weren't supposed to?
The Eish Zor, but Lav Dafka, that would have been Machayiv and the Misa. Rabbi Lezer says it belonged there. It's just that they didn't get the green light from Moshe. They didn't ask Moshe. They passed it without asking Moshe. But here's the thing. The Zohar says that what was their age? They were teenagers. That's why the Pasuk calls them Bnei Aaron. They were still children of Aaron. They were not yet their own men. They were under 20, and they were b'shus of their father. Actually, it says how sad the day was that their mother was beaming in pride that her husband Aaron was finally the Kohen Gadol. Her children were the regular Kohanim, and she was beaming in pride, and then boom, her heart was torn apart. Half of her kids died.
Right, it was the day.
It was that day. Day number one was the first day. They couldn't control themselves. So the Zohar says they were young. They were under 20. In fact, the Zohar in Parshas Pinchas says that their neshamas weren't ready to go to Gan Eden. So their neshamas were hovering around. For the entire 40 years the Yidden were in the desert, the neshamas were hovering. Until, in the end of the sojourn of the desert, the Ma'aseh of Pinchas. When Pinchas went into that tent, and he stuck his spear through Cosbi and through Zimri, and he killed them, so Zimri was the Nasi of the Shevet of Shimon. The whole Shevet, they surrounded Pinchas, they wanted to lynch him, they wanted to kill him. Right. The Zohar says Pinchas was so afraid, he pushed had a heart attack and he died. His neshama left him. And his soul met the souls of his uncles. Nadav and Avihu were Pinchas' uncles, his father, Elazar's brothers. And the Eibishter put the neshamas all together and stuffed them into Pinchas' body. So Pinchas woke up a moment later, he was a new person. And that's why he became a Kohen. Everyone asks, how did Pinchas become a Kohen? Because he killed Zimri and Cosbi became a Kohen? Since when do you become a Kohen if you kill someone? The answer is, he died, and the souls of his uncles who were Kohanim entered his body. That's how he became a Kohen. So that's the story of Nadav and Avihu. What?
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever heard it too.
It's a
Is that
Zohar. It's a Zohar. It's a Zohar in Parshas
I'm saying, is that
Pinchas.
a kasha that everyone asks to have they become a kohen? or
Yeah,
is it
yeah,
just
no,
not
there are,
to be?
there are, no, there are. Yeah. It is a question everybody asks, and this is the Kabbalistic answer. The answer al pi pshat is because what he did wasn't an act of murder. Yidden were dying left, right, and center because of a
Right.
plague. 24,000 Yidden died. When he killed Zimri and Cosby, he ended that whole fiasco. He killed one to save many. It was really an act of saving lives. It was really an act of peace, and therefore he was given
That's
the
what anger was. Anger.
a Kohen makes peace between Yidden and God. Yid sins and the Kohen cleans up the mess.
But
Pinchas cleaned up the ultimate mess.
Because he
He asked Moshe, "Didn't I hear
Right.
from you?"
knew.
And Moshe said, "If that's what you remember, go and do it." Moshe said,
Right.
"You can do it. It's up to you." Because that's actually the halacha that if a Yid is living with a Goyish woman publicly, an individual
the
who
reverse.
has a zealous has the right. Bezin won't tell him
But
to
that's
do
the
it.
reverse of what his uncle said. He asked Moshe.
Right, exactly, the tikkun. You're right. In fact, it gets even better because the Zohar says Pinchas and Eliyahu are the same person.
Right.
Pinchas lived on to become Eliyahu. And the story when Eliyahu stood by Mount Carmel and he had the showdown with the 450 false prophets, he said that they both put an animal on the Mizbeach. Whichever side is Zoichet to have a fire come down from heaven will win the debate. And nothing came to the other side. When it came to Eliyahu's turn, he davened that a fire came from heaven. So Eliyahu didn't strike the fire that time. He had to wait for it to come at the right time. That was a tikkun for what Nadav and Avihu had done wrong. So either way, the shayla we're going to ask tonight is...
You heard that before, maybe?
Nope.
Didn't hear that either. I wish to do stuff here.
It gets even better. Eliyahu Navi comes to every Seder, right? You put a glass of wine there. Eliyahu ever drank the wine? He's never ever drank the wine. Why? Because Nadav and Avihu sinned because they were shikr.
That's not what we tell our
So
kids.
because
You say, watch it, you see a movie?
they entered into Pinchas' body.
You
Eliyahu.
your kids, you parents stick. I'm going to tell your kids. They will never drink that stuff.
You
I'm going
better
to
not.
trick you.
Eliyahu doesn't
But let me
drink
ask
wine
you a
on
question.
his
I heard the whole thing
He
of
didn't make
Eliyahu
himself.
only happened in the last 400 years.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying a joke. This Eliyahu doesn't drink because nobody got drunk. It's just a joke.
No, but I'm saying, is that true?
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
That was.
Eliyahu is not
So
only 400 years old.
the Rebbe has a whole,
but our
a whole-
Rebbe is-
a whole beer about that.
Yeah.
The Vilna Gaon learns that the Kodesh Eliyahu is the fifth cup because in Gemara there's a debate if you're supposed to have a fifth cup.
Right.
So we put it on the table, but we don't drink it. And we call it the cup of Eliyahu because the debate was never resolved. Who's going to resolve all unresolved debates? Eliyahu.
I love it.
But the Rebbe learns that Alter Rebbe disagrees because Alter Rebbe discusses the fifth cup in one place and the Kodesh Eliyahu discusses it elsewhere. So according to Alter Rebbe, it's two different things. So the Rebbe actually learns an incredible thing, that it's funny because the Kodesh Eliyahu is just a minig. The fifth cup, which is an opinion in Gemara, has completely disappeared, according to the Alter Rebbe. And the Rebbe explained that the fifth cup represents the shleimus and Torah and mitzvahs, completion. That's dwindled down over time. No one knows Torah today like they did 1,000 years ago. That's dwindled down. But the Kodesh Eliyahu, which represents looking forward to Mashiach, that's much stronger now than ever before. And that's why in the last couple hundred years, the Kodesh Eliyahu got on the table. Now,
And everybody does that, right? It's not the Beltesha people. It's
yeah,
accepted by everybody, no?
yeah. I don't know, maybe I don't know if the Sfardim do,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Try to do it.
The Teimanim do it.
Temanim avad.
Anyhow, so the shaila is like this. If Taka, they were teenagers, why were they punished? We know there's a rule that the Eibishter never gives out a punishment for someone less than 20 years old. Bezdin down here, the cutoff is 13 years old. 13 years old, that's when punishments begin. Someone breaks Shabbos when they're 13, as long as they also have the pubic hairs, they're going to get killed. They're chayiv for, they're considered responsible adults. But Bezdin doesn't punish until you're 20. So if so, how did Nadav and Avihu get the death sentence? How did a fire come out from heaven? This is the shaila. So we have some incredible things to explore over here. And we will begin. So number one is, where's Bechlal the source for this idea that heaven waits till you're 20? And we're going to see not everybody agrees to it. Not everyone agrees to it at all. But it starts with the Gemara in Shabbos Daf Peites, number one. Top line. Third word in. La'asid loving the future, Yermaleh Hashem will say to Avram, Banecha chotul, your children have sinned. So Amar lafan of Rebbeinu Shalom, Yimachu al Kedushas Shmecha, let the Yidden be erased for the Kedusha of your name. So Amar, Hashem is going to say that wasn't the answer I was hoping for. Eimalei Yankiv, let me ask Yaakov, Tahavalei Tsar Gidul Banim, he knows what it's like to raise children, he suffered the pain. Efshe de boy Rachmel, maybe he'll ask for mercy for the Yidden. This is talking about right before Mashiach comes, we're going to be in the pit spiritually, and this is going to be a conversation Hashem's going to have with all of us. So Amalei, Hashem's going to tell Yankov, Banecha chatu, your children have sinned. So Amalei, he's going to say the same thing as Avram. Rebbeinu Shalom, Yimachu al Kedusha Shmech, let them be erased. So Amar, Hashem's going to say, Loi besavi taima, v'loi bedardiki yetza. The older one doesn't have reason, and the younger one doesn't have any good advice. I mean, neither Avram, neither Yankov are going to come to our defense. So now the Abish will come to you. So Amar le Yitzchak, Banecha chad, your children have sinned. So Yitzchak's going to pull out from his pocket the following: Amar from Rebbeinu Shalom, Banai, they're my kids. V'loi banecha. You're telling me Yitzchak, your kids have sinned. Hashem, they're your kids too. B'shah shikdimu lefanecha, when they said Naser v'nishma, Koroslam, you called them B'ni B'chari, my children, my B'char. Achshav, and now you're saying Bonai, they're Yitzchak's kids, V'loi Banecha, they're not your kids, God? They're your kids too. V'oid, in addition, Kama Chotu. How much did they sin already? Kama Shnoisav Shaladam. B'chal, how long does a person live? Shivim Shana, 70 years. Dal Esrin, take away the first 20. Deloy Anasht Alaya, that you don't punish them. Which would mean that Chorus or Misa B'dei Shamayim, or anything which is strictly in the hands of Hashem, the Eibishter doesn't do it if you're less than 20. So Parshal Chamshin, you're left with 50 years. Dal Chafei, 25 of that, Delegusa is nighttime, right? No one sins at night.
Shluf.
Indeed. Yeah. 20 years don't count.
Back in the day, nobody did Averis at night. Today, it only happens at night.
Right.
The first 20 years.
That's it. Some say, by the way, there's a witness can't be a judge unless he judges the moment he sees it. But if you sin at night, the Eibush is the witness, but you can't judge at night. You're going to judge by day.
That's right.
And since the Eibush is the witness and the judge, he can't do it since it's not at the same time. That's what some want to say. But either way, says Yitzchak, it's only 50 years, right? Half of it is night. You're down to 25 years. Dal Tartisrei, take away 12 and a half, or Palga 12 and a half. Titzlui, you daven, or Mechel, you eat, to the basic kids, you're in the bathroom. So Bechlal, what's left? Partial Tartisrei, you Palga. You're left with 12 and a half years. Imata soivel is kulam, if you burden them mutav good, and lav, if not, palga olai, palga loch, half on me, half on you. This is why, remember, we split the middle matzah. Because the matzahs are connected to others. Right. The middle one is Yitzchak. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. We learned this part too, yeah.
So that's why we split Yitzchak's matzah, because he said, half on me, half on you. The imtim saloimar. And if you're going to say, and Yitzchak tells God, kulam olai, you want me to take all of it? I already brought my soul to you by the Akedah. So Pascha v'Amr, the Yidden are all going to say to Yitzchak, you are our father. And then Yitzchak is going to turn to the Yidden and say, instead of praise me, praise God. Yitzchak will show God to the eyes of the Jews. So Meyad Noswenim, the Yidden will lift up their eyes, Lamarim to God. They're going to say, God, you are our father, etc. That's the part. That's what the Gemara says. The famous piece of Gemara. So you see from here, Hashem doesn't punish unless you're 20 years old. What's another source? It's a famous Medrash Rabbah. It's not on the paper. But the famous Medrash Rabbah in Kairach. By the Machlekes, who died? Kairach's family, Dasan, Vaviram, the women, the children, the kids, Vitapam, the babies. And the Medrash says, look how severe Machlekes is. Usually Hashem only punishes after you're 20. But here it's even the Kindalach. So that's a second source. Another source is a Rashi in Chumash, in Parshas Acharei Mos. So the beginning, Vayir Acharei Mos, 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. So Rashi quotes from the Medrash Rabbah. Why do we say years after each group? When she was 100, she was like 20. When she was like 20, she was like 7. What's the pshat? When she was 100, she was free of sin, just like a 20 years old is free of sin. And when she was 20, she was beautiful like 7. What does Rashi mean that when she was 100, she was like 20, free of sin? What that means is, Rashi says that just like a 20-year-old is free of sin, because Hashem doesn't hold you responsible, she was like that when she was 100.
Wish I knew this when I was 18.
Right?
Now the truth is, though, that many say that's a false version of the Medrash. Because what does it mean when she was 20, she was beautiful like 7? When is a woman more beautiful, like 20 or 7?
20, right?
Right. So the Mizrahi, the Mefarish on Rashi says that there's something more beautiful of a 7-year-old than a 20-year-old.
I wonder what the quality of the skin, maybe?
Maybe the sweetness, No, there's a physical beauty. And Rabbeinu Bachaya famously says, Tinek Mishanoilad Maschil Yavish, from when a baby's born, you start to dry up. It's downhill from the moment of birth.
It has to do with skin.
Right, so there's a certain beauty. But
is that your religion, or you're saying there's a market?
No, the Mizrahi writes that there's something.
Who's the Mizrahi?
Eliyahu Mizrahi was in the end of the 1400s is when he started off. He was the first Mefarish on Rashi. He's Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi. He's a very important commentary on Rashi.
How long after Rashi wasn't?
400 years. He tries to defend Rashi from all the kashas of the Ramban. Anyhow, so it's some time though that the Medrash is actually meant to be flipped. It's meant to be when Sarah was 100, she was like 20 in beauty, and when she was 20, she was like 7 in sin.
Right.
Many hold that's the correct version.
But why
that
7?
Makes sense.
Why 7 for sin then? Why not 11?
Well, she lived 127 years. So we're comparing the 100 to the 20 to the 7. Okay. When she was 100, she was beautiful like 20. And when she was 20, she was sin-free like a 7-year-old. If you learn that shot, obviously there's no proof in the Medrash.
That's the more popular one.
No, it's not. Rashi says
the other one?
The first way. Right, so according to Rashi's version, it's a great raya that until 20 years old, you're not held responsible.
Who's the other one?
The other one is I don't even know who the first person is, but there's an old. There's another version of the Medrash Rabbah. There's two. Rashi's quoting from the Medrash Rabbah. There's another old variant of the text that has it the other way around, and it answers why, the question of why is 7 more beauty than 20. Fine, and it also will no longer serve as a proof that the Eibishter waits till you're 20 years old to punish you. But according to Rashi's version, and according to the Medrash about the Machlokes of Korach, and according to the Gemara over here in Shabbos, it's clear the Eibishter waits until you're 20. So let's look at. So then the question is: so how did Nadav and Avihu? Why did they suffer at the hands of heaven? Why did a fire come out and consume them? The Eibishter doesn't punish less than 20, and the Zohar says they were teenagers.
It appeared that they were under 20. Is it for sure that they were under 20?
The Zohar says they were teenagers. So
is that the only marker of that, or is there?
It says
a physical test that shows that.
It said that it's based on the words Bnei Aaron. It always calls them Bnei Aaron, means they were still under the jurisdiction of their father.
Is there a
nowhere else doesn't say. We don't know because.
The travels and everything. Do we know?
But Gordon says there are certain things in the Chumash that give us bookmarks or time places.
Yeah, but most things not.
Right, most things not. But there's some where you can make them go back and forth.
There's ein muktum u'meucher. There's often arguments. The Ramban likes to say how in Chumash almost everything is chronological, unless it's there's certain proof that it isn't. Other Mefarshim,
right, it's not.
And they're often any small question you'll say that it's this is out of order. So even then, some of the explicit information, it's not so clear how to interpret it. But the age of Nadav and Avihu, other than the Zohar, it's not clear because, listen, Aaron was in his 80s. Aaron was in Mitzrayim the whole time. He married Nachshon's sister Elisheva. We don't know exactly when they married, when they had kids. You don't know.
Right.
So, without the Zohar, there's no other concrete information about their age. But assuming the Zohar is correct, so then we have this issue. We're up the creek without a paddle. So let's go to number 2 of the Chassam Sofer. The story over here by the Chassam Sofer, there was a couple who were engaged in intimacy, and during the act, she realizes that she's having a period as they're. So that, oh boy. So they wrote. They felt terrible. Maybe they felt careless. And
There's halacha on that, though.
Right. There are halachas, but afterwards they felt horrible. So the question was sent to the Chassam Sofer. Do they need to do tshuva, etc., etc. So in the story, they were actually less than 20 years old. Guess they got married young.
In those days, what are you kidding me?
Right. So
those days.
look at number 2.
So something's marrying that.
Yeah, that.
Umasher Ramaztov, Chassam Sofer writes to the Rav that sent in the question, Vihi loy higia le'eshrim shana, that she wasn't 20 years old yet. Nira daitcha, it seems that you believe she'ena bas oinshim lamayla, that since she's a teenager, God doesn't hold her responsible. Says the Chassam Sofer, Zeh loy nimtza b'shas. It's not found anywhere in Gemara. Rak b'drushay agoda. Only in Drushay Agoda.
Just brought Shabbos.
Drushay Agoda doesn't have to mean Medrash. Drushay Agoda can mean in Gemara. Even the places of Gemara where it's not halacha, but it's Agoda, so Chassam Sofer says, it's not that you can't take it serious. You can take it serious, but you can't make any practical conclusions. Yitzchak's pulling out a cute argument, right? You can't start basing halachas based on that. Ukvar kosavnu mizeh ha'achronim, ukvar kosvu zeh ha'achronim. The Achronim, and the Chassam Sofer himself lived. He was born in 1762, passed away in the end of the 1830s. And he says the Achronim before me, they write she'ein lismay chal zeh klal. You can't rely. This whole 20 years thing is a fantasy. It's a cute thing that Yitzchak's going to pull out of his pocket to tell the Eibishter, but it doesn't have any real ramifications. And then I'll continue. Abul ha'emes, he says the truth is, meshenasu b'nei mitzvah b'shonim, once they become bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah. B'shonim means either he's 13, she's 12. V'simonim, they also have to have the pubic hairs. With the two of them, mischayivin b'chol chiyuvei Torah. Once the boy's 13 and he has 2 hairs, and the girl has 2 hairs and she's 12, they're chayiv in all the chiyuvim of Torah. Whether it's bez and shalmaila, v'shalmata, both. The imlay tema hachi, if you're not gonna say that, laman da'amar yoledus u'mitzer v'nazir chaytim heim, a woman who gives birth or mitzer or manazir, in their karbonis they bring a carbon chatos, right? So if they're sinners, then wait a second, then loy maisi karbonim koidim esrim. Then if someone's a mitzvah less than 20, or a yeledus, a woman who gives birth less than 20, or a nazir, they shouldn't have to bring the carbon chatos because they didn't sin in the eyes of Hashem. Such a thing shouldn't be brought on the table. It's bodmaises. The next paragraph is still the Chassam Sofer. He still continues. Well, the feeling is that the problem is you have the Rashi and Chumash, let's say, about Sarah. So we would say there's always another version, right? There's 2 versions of the Medrash. But what about...
How does he answer that, Rashi?
Let's see what he says. Well, the Fiani is daiti. I believe, I, the Midrashim, say 20 years. That only when you're 20 will heaven be hold you culpable. Only if it's a punishment, for the time, something unique transpired, and all of a sudden there's a random punishment. One of the greatest proofs there are that Hashem waits till you're 20 is from the story of the Meraglim. Yeah. After the Yidden were Moyes in Eretz Yisrael, so the Eibush punished all those above 20. In fact, Rashi on the Gemara in Shabbos number 1 says that's the source for Yitzchak to pull out this whole 20-year thing. Says Chassam Sofer, that was not a standard punishment written in the Chumash. That was a one-time thing that happened. Those types of punishments Hashem decides 20 years old. V'chein basara, nemer, it says bas esrim k'bazayim b'loichet, and he accepts Rashi's version that when she was 12.
That's the other version.
Right. Now l'chayra, it must be some. But l'chayra is referring to Rashi's version. Hasam koydem matan Torah hava. You can't bring a raya from that. That was before Torah was given. She wasn't even chayiv in mitzvahs, right? And even the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Before the Torah was given, it could be the cutoff line was 20. Rashi and Bereshis says the cutoff line was 100. Was 100.
That she was like a person of 7 or a person of 20 when he gave a sin. According to what you're saying.
No, 100 to 20.
Right, but I'm
No,
saying
before what he's saying is before Matan
before my
Torah.
there was 7. What's it called? Anybody could have kept that.
Or anybody
So,
didn't have to.
so what was the big?
No.
That she didn't have any
Oh, he's
sins.
saying nobody had sins.
Yeah.
Nobody, but
He's
I'm sure
saying
there was many.
many
Only
other
7.
people
Gosh, how
who
many?
kept 7 mitzvahs.
Halavayat Mikas I can only have to watch 7.
First of all, the Ramban says Bnei Noach are chayiv in a lot more than the 7.
Right.
Chayiv in many other any mitzvah which is logical. The shals when if they'd only be chayiv in that after Matan Torah.
I'm saying based on what you were saying. That
No, does that mean that Sarah kept the entire Torah? When Rashi says that she didn't have any sins, it means she never ate tray for things like that? Who knows? It's hard to know what it means. But even the 7 mitzvahs, never to steal once in your life, never to,
Listen, she was ostensibly, she had a lot of money, a lot of servants. Really, what was she stealing? What did she need to steal? I mean, you can say, that's not such a wonder. What did she ever have to steal? She had her own flock. Avram gave her a stipend. And she was a good person.
I'm just saying you're making this
never
whole
had any
thing.
illicit thoughts.
But that's not a sin by...
Why? Hashem by a goy, Hashem considers the machshava kamaisa.
But what do you have to have an
But
illicit thought of? The 7
but
mitzvahs
when it comes to a goy, the Gemara says Hashem considers an evil thought like an action.
So you tell me
So
that.
for a guy, so maybe she never had it. We just made a big flip of it.
Everyone has machshava.
Not Sarah. Anyhow, listen, that requires tak explanation. Does Rashi mean she never sinned as far as Bnei Noach, or it means she kept the entire Torah?
But he's trying to say that to Ben Noach.
No. What he's saying is before Matan Torah. Well,
yeah, it's Bnei Noach.
That's what he's trying to use as a raya.
He's like saying, it's not such a big kunz because it's before
Matan Torah. The rules were completely different.
So
there were so many differences before Matan Torah. So it could be that even there could be before Matan Torah. If you want to be machmir to keep Torah, it only starts at 20. It could mean that's the pshat. Before Matan Torah, less than 20 is garnished, and therefore if you want to be machmir to keep the mitzvahs, it only starts at 20. But let's continue. V'hakol etzlo k'mitzvah sichlius. Fine. V'alzeh nemru sheyudim halalu. Concerning such cases, these shiyurim were said, right? Avol ein shei haTorah, but a regular punishment written in the Chumash for all generations. Ein shum chiluk. There's no difference between above 20 or below, because the shiyurim Allah al Moshe Sinai, Hashem gave to Moshe and Sinai all of the numbers for all measurements, sizes, times, and length, everything. All the shiyurim in Torah Hashem gave to Moshe and Sinai. And one of them is the age to be chai, which is 13 years old. He said, Bein l'malchus, bein l'korban. It's all 13. Uben yud gimel shevi beisayris, shavel l'chol ontim shebetayra. He says that once you're 13, you're chayiv in everything. It doesn't make a difference, bezin shalmata. It doesn't make a difference, bezin shalmaila. So that's the opinion of Samsur, pretty clear. So he doesn't believe that this has any real ramifications. What's he going to do with the medrash about kairach? The medrash there says, look how serious machlekes is. That usually the Avihu doesn't punish until you're 20, and over here even the kinderlach. So what does the medrash refer to? That Hashem doesn't punish till 20, unless the medrash is referring to the story that happens right before kairach, which is the meraglim, and the medrash is just comparing and contrasting. But look how bad machlekes is. When it came to the meraglim, Hashem only punished above 20. When it came to kairach, it's even the kinderlach.
Kairach was
So
after the meraglim?
In the Chumash, it's after the meraglim. It's a machlekes in the medrashim. That's one of the classical machlekes. Which story happened first, meraglim or kairach? There's steers in Rashi as well, in Rashi and Chumash.
You're right, it is, because it says one of the issues of it talks about in kairach, in the meraglim, that it juxtaposes the two, and it says this is a result of that. When you do this, you get that. Whichever one came first in the time of the Torah, when the next one came, it's almost like a consequence of the
meraglim and kairach.
Yeah,
but each one could have led to the other.
Right.
So Rashi in kairach, he says kairach came after shlach, and that's why Moshe kind of gave up davening for the Yidden. He threw up his hands. I've already tried so many times to get them out of trouble. And Rashi quotes, for example, the meraglim, which means the meraglim happened first. But in Parshas Dvarim, Rashi seems to say that the story of Kairach happened before.
But
either way, that's a big machlekes in the midrashim. But
yeah. How does that?
No, I'm just saying, what's the Chassam Sofer going to do We said there's another raya that Hashem waits till you're 20.
Right.
The
So
Medrash.
then what's the problem? Some for saying that they were under 20 and they were punished for because
the Medrash says, look how bad machlekes is. That usually Hashem only waits to punish till you're 20, and by Korach even the Kindlech were killed.
Oh, but I'm
So
saying
the Medrash says clearly that by other things Hashem waits till you're 20. The Chassam Sofer might say the other thing might refer to the Meraglim.
Well, what is his opinion of Benegay Aaron's sons? There were kids. They were
No
under
problem.
6, so finished.
Yeah, finished. No problem.
So
According to him, there's no question.
No, but he's saying
According
how does he
to Chassam
answer
Sofer, there's
the
no question.
Medrash and
So he said he only has a problem Benegay that other measures.
Yes.
But Benegay Aaron's.
And that will be perfect.
Okay.
According to him, Aaron's kids will be perfect, right? Because the punishment they got is a set punishment in Chumash for whatever the Avera was. Exactly. It proves his point. Exactly. Now, if you don't learn like him, we're back to the question.
Right.
So look at number 4. First, look at the second paragraph in number 4. The loy onasht. Yesh mitshuv betshuvas chacham tzvi. There's a tshuva the chacham tzvi. The chacham tzvi, the tzvi Ashkenazi, of number 4, the second paragraph. The chacham tzvi, the tzvi Ashkenazi, was one of the greatest. He was Ashkenazi. Name like Ashkenazi. No, he was
Chacham. That's a Sephardi thing.
He started off in Czechoslovakia, Trebish, I think the name of the town.
Ashkenazi.
He was Ashkenazi, but he went to many different places. He couldn't really. He was
Sephardi.
a couple of years in one place, and
He became a Chacham in Sephardi. He started off in Czech.
Unfortunately, he could never hold the post. Unfortunately, he could never really hold the rabbinic post. Got into lots of machlekes.
He got into machlekes?
Yeah, with balabatim and this and that. I mean, he was a brilliant scholar. In fact, we usually don't paskin like him, but his psakim have a lot of weight.
When will he live?
So he was born in 1656, passed away 1718. So you're talking about the generation before the Baal Shem Tov.
Right,
He
He
lived pretty
was 60
long.
years old, no?
For those times, that was a pretty long.
56.
Yeah, we managed to live in lots of places. He was in
Got a lot of exercise.
yeah, he was in Germany and in Amsterdam. He was in London, and ultimately he was in Lvov and died in Lvov. He's buried in Lemberg. So Al Kaponim, he made the Eruv in The Hague, for The Hague in the Netherlands, which is a moat. So it's surrounded by water. So he used the moat itself as the mechitzas for the
Is
Eruv.
it still there, that Arab?
Yeah, the moat's still there. There's any Jews over there.
Right.
Anyhow,
So
he was a fascinating.
fascinating.
He was a fascinating.
Nice.
Unfortunately, his son, Rabbi Yankov Emden.
That's his son.
Yeah, that was his son. Yeah.
Yankov Emden was a heavy hitter.
A major player.
The night of
Yankov Emden would basically fought with anybody that.
Well, Yankov Emden was a big part of the divorce of that whole divorce scandal.
Cleves.
The get of Cleves was Yankov Emden was one of the big players there.
Anyhow, so
It's a fascinating
he
story.
writes unfortunately that. Maybe another time. He writes unfortunately that his father
They
suffered
want to know if you could have a shirt on that.
at some point.
Yeah,
at
it's
some point.
fascinating.
The Chacham Tzvi suffered from depression. It was very sad.
This Chacham
His
Tzvi?
son writes that his father, Chacham Tzvi, as you know, life was very tough for him. You know, everywhere he was in fights and this and that. But he wrote his big work, Chacham Tzvi, and the Chacham Tzvi in Siman Mem Tes has a kushim mipsachim daf tzadik gimel and chen daf tzadik aleph. It's a good question. The Mamayit rak cotton ma'onish. The Gemara there says that a cotton who doesn't bring the korban Pesach won't get chorus. That means we only exclude someone under bar mitzvah. It's the fact that Chacham Tzvi, I thought anyone under 20 should be excluded from chorus. V'loy pachas michaf. So why don't we exclude anyone less than 20? So the Himtzi, the Chacham Tzvi, comes up with 4 possibilities. Echad, one answer is Sham Iker v'kan rak haggadah. The Gemara in Psachim, which is a halacha discussion, trumps the discussion in Gemara Shabbos, which is just a cute debate between Yitzchak and the Eibishter.
Similar to what Chassam
Right. The Ein Lamed, and you can't learn from Haggadah. That's one approach. Bay, the second approach, Pachas miyud gimul la'olam lo'inenish. If you're less than 13, you'll never get punished. Not down here, not in heaven. Pachas michaf rak lepamim. Less than 20 might depend. Don't know what it depends on. Might depend.
But that's what.
We might get an idea soon.
Yeah.
But if it's less than 20, it might depend. And therefore, the Gemara in Pesachim doesn't want to exclude completely less than 20 because it's not so fast. But you don't always get punished, so it's not a contradiction.
Maybe that's where.
In other words, when Yitzchak, because Yitzchak
was talking about the general times when you don't get punished.
Right, but there might be times that you do.
When you're making
Gimel, the third approach is Pachas michaf nenish leilam haba. Pachas mashenkin pachas miyud gimel. If you're less than 13, you're scot-free completely. A 10-year-old that's going to eat chaylev is not going to get kars, or eats Yom Kippur doesn't get kars, right? There's no, less than a bar mitzvah is garnished. Less than 20, you'll suffer in olam haba.
Not here.
Not in this world.
That's it flips it.
Right. So according to that approach, what can be with Nadav and Avihu? We still have a kasha.
Yeah.
Because they shouldn't have been, they were punished in this world.
And they were punished from
Right.
Hashem.
Right. But according to him, how do you explain the contradiction of Gemara Shabbos and Gemara Pesachim? When the Gemara Pesachim doesn't want to exclude anyone less than 20, because it's not so fast, you will get an Olam Haba. But Yitzchak in number 1, Yitzchak is talking about the Yidden who are currently alive. So that would be the answer.
Yeah.
Those that are alive, Taka, don't get punished. So number 1, Yitzchak saying, Hashem, the Yidden that are alive, they don't get punished, they're less than 20. The Gemara in Pesachim doesn't want to exclude someone less than 20, because Taka, in Olam Haba, you have to, you're going to be challenged for why you did the Aveira. So we can't exclude it from the Pasuk, because you'll be held to task in Olam Haba. So the two Gemaras fit together. Right? Daled, the fourth option is Pachas michaf lo nenish miyad. If you're between 13 and 20, the chorus hangs on your head. But the Eibush has patience. Elim lo chazer b'tshuva nenish b'soif. Hashem gives you a long time to do tshuva. If you don't, he'll punish you at the end. So in other words, according to the fourth answer, if you're less than bar mitzvah, there's no chorus at all. If you're over 20, really you should get it right away.
How does this all
Even
work?
though chorus also usually means you die before 50.
How does this all work?
But if you're between 13 and 20, you get even longer. The Eibush has a lot of patience.
A chance to repent.
Yeah, to repent, but that doesn't make
really
sense.
You always get a chance to repent.
No,
Yeah.
because
Not on
not on cars.
You could die before 50.
Yeah, but
if you sinned at 25,
But it
the
doesn't
Eibush is
go
not going
away.
to knock you off right away. No, you could do tshuva.
No, I thought the Alter Rebbe and Tanya talks about
Could do tshuva for
that in
cars.
the Beis Hamikdash times, chorus, you couldn't do tshuva on chorus.
No. You would die. No. Tshuva
And
you could do.
it's
No,
today's
for sure you could do
Tanya,
tshuva on
yesterday's
cars.
Tanya, where it says that's one of the milas of right now, that even the mitzvahs of chorus you can do tshuva on it.
no,
You can do
the
tshuva
Bar-
on it because there is no chorus outside the Beis
In
Hamikdash.
Igeris HaTshuva,
Today's Tanya or yesterday's Tanya? It's definitely this week. It talks about specifically that one of the benefits of today, we think we're Yeridas Adairas and we have it much harder, but we can actually do tshuva on those type, because it's talking about the fear of heaven. This is what it's that we can actually do tshuva on things that you usually have karas on, because the only time karas is applicable is the Beis Hamikdash.
No, of course, applicable always, all times, all places. The Alter Rebbe in Igeris HaTshuva says that now that we get chayes from klippus, you can live much longer than 50, 60 years.
Right, that's separate.
Right.
But I believe today
but
he said
even
one
the
of the
time of Beis
benefits.
Hamikdash, you could do, if you do tshuva out of love, and you transform your aveir into a mitzvah, you won't get karas.
Even cars?
Yeah. If you do regular tshuva, you'll still get karas. Tshuva out of fear, but tshuva out of love, all the poskim say, because tshuva out of love
I'm afraid
it transforms the aveir to a mitzvah. You wouldn't get karas. Anyhow, but either way, this is the Chacham Tzvi's 4 approaches to the matter. Look at the first thing of number 4. The first thing of number 4 is a comment from the Maratz Chayes. Who is he? Reb Tzvi Hersh Chayes. So he was an incredible scholar. He lived only 50 years. Today it's not so long. From 1805 to 1855, and they lived in Ukraine. He was a brilliant scholar. He actually went to university. At some time, the Austrian government, Austria was a big melucha then, they made a rule, any Rav, you have to get a degree. He went to college, he got a degree in philosophy. It was a unique thing. And actually his style of learning, he often picks up on the interesting historical elements Gemara and Medrash. Whenever there's an interesting discussion, he definitely has an opinion on the matter. Anyhow, he was a great author, a great Rav. He actually just got a big position in Rabbanos, in his life. He was just entering the greatest light of his life, and then Nebuch, he passed away.
What city in Ukraine was he from?
I don't know. In the
Western
Ukraine,
yeah,
Western Ukraine.
Western,
Brody, Lemberg, those cities over there. Yeah,
under the Austria.
exactly. Yeah, Western Ukraine. So look what he says over here. The first thing of number 4. Nichtav b'tzidai. It was written, the Nun Beis. It was written on the side of his Gemara. Ayin Yerushalmi Perek Zayin de Bikurim. The Yerushalmi also says Hashem waits till you're 20 years old. V'ayin Gam Ken Rashi. Next on Ayin Medrash Parshas Rabbadesh Parshas Chayisara. We saw that. Divrei Harab Eliezer Elio Mizrachi. Sorry, we saw that. Weiter. Look at the next line. Shuvas Chacham Tzvi. This is the same thing we saw before. She pikpik bazeh. Pikpik means he's a little unsure. Loimer de einerak divrei agad. Maybe the Gemara in Shabbos is just a medrash and can't learn from it. But he says va'ayin divrei Rambam. He quotes an important statement of the Rambam. Pirish HaMishnayis Perek Daled de Sanhedrin. Arba Misses. That's not Perek Daled. That's a wrong Perek over there. It's wrong number. In the Perek Arba Misses, on the Mishnah Haba'al HaZocher, the Mishnah that speaks about if a person lives with another man, what's their punishment? After the Rambam speaks at length about Arayas, Kosev, the Rambam then writes like this. Mipia Shmuel Abmadnu, we have learned from tradition. She'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu manish es a chayev koros, rak achar esrim shana. Hashem does not punish someone's chayev koros only after 20. Ayin Shom see there. The Rambam has said it as etched in stone, and that's the final word on the matter. So the Maratz Chai is saying, listen, the Rambam says it. The Rambam, right? The Rambam in his Pirush HaMishnayis, has a black and white. So the buck stops there.
Buck stops there.
So what we have so far is like this.
Yeah, we have the Rambam says is be paskin by.
Yeah, but which other Rishon is arguing in the Rambam? You have Achronim, the Chacham Tzvi, you have to have some big Rishon. The Chasam Sofer, and the Chasam Sofer is 1700, 1800.
Much later.
Passed away 1839.
Right. Rambam is the 40s.
Mars Chai is a couple years younger. The Chacham Tzvi were the generation 2 generations before, but still, they're not in the same ballpark as the Rambam. They don't have the
Throw
rights.
that green thing out, Jacobson.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
no.
There you go, 100%.
Let's get in there. Leave it in a box for now.
it's the only way.
Yeah, it's from the freezer.
So a regular call doesn't knock it off, but
They will put it in a box.
it's the WhatsApp calls that knock it off.
Doesn't get as cold as Schweppes.
The WhatsApp calls they knock
Oh,
off.
please, can I have a Schweppes?
All right.
Yeah, that's why airplane mode.
Yeah. The regular calls don't knock it off, but the WhatsApp calls knock off the recording. All right. So basically, where are we holding? Let's just kind of get everything together.
We got it.
Right.
We're
This
at
is
the
just for
Rambam.
me.
Mr. Rambam.
This is just for me. This is just for me.
Back into the
So
loop.
the Gemara in Shabbos says Yitzchak is going to pull out to the Eibishter. You don't punish someone for what they did less than 20. Rashi on the Gemara says, what's the source? The story of the Meraglim, that only those above 20 were punished. We said it's also a Medrash Rabbah by Kairach, where the Medrash says, look how bad Machlekes is. Usually Hashem waits till you're 20, and here the Kinderlach were killed. We said it's a Medrash Rabbah by Chayisara, right? That she was 100, she was like 20. And we said there were 2 versions of that Medrash though. But all of these seem to indicate Hashem waits till you're 20. So if so, Nadav and Avihu were teenagers, the Zohar says, why did the fire come out and consume them? We saw the Chasam Sofer believes Lamaisa, we don't rely on this. Once you're 13 or girls 12 and you have the pubic hairs, the buck stops there. You're punished in Bezin Shalmata. You're punished in Bezin Shalmaila. Sarah was before Matan Torah. I, by the Meraglim, Hashem waited till they were 20, because that was just a random one-time punishment that Hashem put on the generation. But a regular Chiyuv in Torah, whenever the Torah says you're Chayiv Misa, and it's a din for generations, exactly, it makes no difference the hand of Bezin or the hand of Hashem. We saw that the Chacham Tzvi is also not very convinced. He's a little skeptical about this 20-year-old business, and he had a kasha of the Gemara in Pesachim, which excludes only a minor below 13 from chorus of Korban Pesach. He gave 4 possible answers that we discussed, but one of them is Taka, the whole 20 thing is just Divrei Agad, and we don't accept it. But then he gave a couple other possibilities. Then we saw the Maratz Chayes. The Maratz Chayes believes, he says he knows that there's a Chacham Tzvi, but he says, listen, there's a Rambam, in the Rambam's Pirush HaMishnayis to Sanhedrin, the Rambam writes, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Manish Hashem does not punish someone who's Chayav Koros until he's 20 years old.
Trump card. A top trump.
That's it. The buck stops there. Who else is supportive of the 20-year thing? The Chidah. I don't have it on the paper, but the Chidah, Reb Chaim Yosef David Azulai,
Ashkenazi.
he was Fardas. He was
Fardas. Sure.
The picture of the turban.
Azulai.
He was born.
I know, but Chacham Tzvi.
He was born in Eretz Yisrael.
Right.
In 1724. Passed away in Italy, in Livorno in 1806.
Why did he move?
Lived a long life.
Troubles,
he spent his
poverty.
whole life traveling. He was always traveling from one place to another. In fact, when he was in Eretz Yisrael, when he was younger, he had numerous teachers. One of them was the Rashash, the Makubal of Shalom Shrebi, a big Kabbalist. Shalom Shrebi.
Shrebi?
Yeah.
Not Sharabi.
Not Shrebi.
The Rashash, he's known as the Rashash. He said about himself, he's a Gilgul of the Arizal. The Rashash said.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah,
You say it about yourself.
yeah, but,
Nice. He probably backed it up.
Other people say that about you.
Right, I'm sure.
I'm a smart
anyhow,
guy.
he was the Rabbein held very much from him. He was a master Kabbalist, and he had a yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael.
What time frame was he in?
We're
You
talking
say
the
that-
year 1750 Lerach, when this story happened.
After
Yeah, probably a little bit older than the Baal Shem Tov by that time. Shem Tov passed away 1760, so at the same time. So he had a yeshiva, about 40 Talmidim in the yeshiva, and there was a yeshiva of Kabbalists. From the 40 students, Rashash chose 2 of them, and they had a group of,
3. Him and 2 students.
Exactly. Special chabura.
And what they do?
It was the Rashash, the Chidah,
Oh wow.
and the third guy was Reb Chaim de la Rosa. And the 3 of them tried to bring Mashiach.
I was about to say, are there stories of magic and mice waving things? Come on.
These people were in a different,
Oh man, they must
a different stratosphere.
Yeah.
A Baskol comes out from heaven.
Okay.
You guys tried to bring Mashiach.
One
early?
more time?
No, too late. One of you is going to die. One of you is going to be exiled from Jerusalem.
No.
And the other one's going to have to travel for the rest of his life.
Wow.
And they made a girl. The Rashash got the girl to die. He died.
Wow.
Reb Chaim de la Rosa was expelled never to go back to Jerusalem. And the Chidah fell on him to travel around. And he spent his whole life traveling around. He wrote Sfarim just about his travels. He was in England, in Germany, he was in Italy, he was in Ukraine, he was everywhere.
It's a Jewish Marco Polo.
And he used to travel to
Did you
raise
say the
funds.
Chacham Tzvi was also traveling a lot?
The Chacham Tzvi traveled, unfortunately, he couldn't hold the position. He was
Different reason.
unfortunately. The Chidah knew he had to travel. It was a punishment.
Wow.
He passed away in Livorno in the year 1806. He was buried there for almost
Chidah.
200
He
years.
also has a lot of smart.
Chidah. He wrote 82 Svarim, like the amount of years that he lived. 82, they say. Yeah.
Imagine you wrote a sefer for every year.
He started writing Svarim when he was a young teenager.
Yeah,
I think when he was 14, he was already writing his
What's his
Svarim.
Google
He started
Docs?
early, and you live a long time.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so they brought his body to Eretz Yisrael a number of decades ago. And
Really?
The Chidah.
After
They
1948?
took him from Livorno, and they brought him to Eretz Yisrael.
Post 1948.
Yeah. So Mordechai
How long was
Eliyahu,
he buried there for?
200
from
years.
1806 to the end of
Why did
100,
they
100, 600, 700 years. What?
Was his
Is
body
it a
intact?
Shiloh? Unless it's a mess.
Hold on. I'll just tell you what happened. Mordechai Eliyahu was the great Sephardic rabbi in Eretz Yisrael. He was a very special man. He was a Talmid Chacham. He was a holy fellow. and he was given the, he was given the rights to actually, to deal with the actual goof. And he said, as he got close to the body, it started moving itself.
Yeah. It's
He
a
said
famous
the
story.
limbs started he wanted to put the limbs, everything in order. He said the limbs started moving themselves before he even approached him.
It's a famous story.
Meiser Shoyer?
Yeah, it's famous.
Yeah.
What?
It's a Meiser Shoyer.
It's like the guy
He's not so long ago.
Yeah.
30, 40 years ago.
It's like the guy who
How many years
moved
ago was
one
it?
of their rebbeim.
4 decades ago.
No?
Something
The
like
What?
that.
story of the guy who moved one of their rebbeim by the Nazis or
But the
something?
Rebbe,
Do we for sure
But the Rebbe
know
Rashad,
this
they
is
moved the
true?
Rebbe Rashad.
That's crazy.
yeah.
Was that by one
Mordechai
Mordechai testified, yes. It's
The question
do you believe? That's it. Do you believe Mordechai Eliyahu?
I mean, he was legit.
Was
Yeah.
there a specific reason they moved him? Like they're
That's
building a highway
crazy.
over the cemetery? Or they
No.
just decided
That
to move him?
stuff
to
still
No,
happens.
Mistama, he
Maybe
probably.
this guy was-
I assume
no,
before he passed
Yeah.
away, he said he
Not
wanted
a job.
to.
It just took 150
But then
years to do
actually-
it.
By the way, now
In
that
our
we're
time.
modern,
Hallelujah.
He
Came out.
It's a
now
famous
that we're
story.
mess halachically, unless two things, unless you make it tonight,
Yeah, mitzvah l'kai. Unless he
or
asked.
if it's a mess mitzvah,
There's also
they're going to
Kvuras
build a highway in
Avosav.
front of it.
His Kvuras Avosav, his family is buried in Eretz Yisrael.
So he knew when he passed away and he requested that he knew that one day there's going to be cars and planes and they're going to
No, I don't know if that was the issue. No, he was moved. He wanted to be buried next by Kvuras Avosav, by where his fathers are. Anyhow, Kaponim, there's a cute story to link the Chidon. This is a cute thing. The Chidon, in his travels, he came to Germany, came to Frankfurt, and he sees there in shul, there's a boy, a young kid, who every day he comes to shul at the end of davening. He comes in Bayoleno every day. And he sees the kid come in, but the kid starts davening. The kid's davening like he'd never seen before. Every day the same thing. So one day he asked the kid, Chidor was there, I guess he was traveling, he was there for a few weeks or something, fundraising. He asked the kid, what's the story? Why do you come so late every day?
What gives?
The kid says, listen, I can't daven with the minion. Too much noise, too much distraction. I have to daven by myself. So the Chidor said, listen, I see you davening with such intensity. Let me ask you a question on davening. In Ezel Humakoimon, just connected to this week's Parshas Acharei Mos, the first two Mishnahs, the first one speaks about the cows and the goats of Yom Kippur, and the second one is Bechlal about Parim HaNisrafim, Sirim HaNisrafim. So he asked the kids, why are they in separate Mishnahs? They have basically the same halachas. So on the spot, the kids said they've all the same halachas but one. The Yom Kippur, the par and the goat and the cow of Yom Kippur, the blood gets sprinkled in three places. On the Oren, on the Pereiches, and on the golden Mizbeach. But the second Mishnah about Stam, the Parim HaNisrafim, it only gets sprinkled twice. On the Pereiches and on the golden Mizbeach. So it can't be in the same Mishnah because there's one discrepancy. So the kid, and this kid, he knows his stuff apparently. So he says, he quoted a passage from Nach. Forgot the Lashon, but that there's a Ish Kaddish over Oleinu. There's a holy man passing over us. He said the Ish Kaddish comes in by Oleinu.
That's good.
The little kid wears the Ish Kaddish, he comes in by Oleinu. Anyhow, so upon him, the Chidor wrote tons of Svarim. One of them is the Pesach Einayim that he wrote on Gemara. And it's on the Gemara in Chagiga Daf Tesvav. The Gemara says there were 4 great Tanoim that entered into the orchard in heaven, right, into Gan Eden. And one of them, unfortunately, was Elisha ben Avuya, who became Acher, right? He was one of the greatest Tanoim. He was a genius, but then he fell completely off the map. And right, Ben Azai and Ben Zayim are the 4.
Oh, but Anazam and Zayim, it's connected to
Right,
this week's
right.
parsha.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They have the same
Nadav and
problem.
Avihu, exactly.
Yeah.
So what happened with Acher? So the Gemara lists a whole bunch of things that happened. One of them was that when he went into heaven, he saw a Malach Matat, was sitting, writing the merits of the Yidden. So Elisha's like, I have a tradition that in heaven there's no sitting. You can't sit in front of God. And Malach sitting. What's going on? He started having Sveikus and Emunah. All of a
after he
sudden,
passed away, he's on his way out?
no. This was during their journey when they entered into paradise. When they
before
went
they
into
went
the
out.
orchard. They went into all of the Rakia, Rashi. They went into the sky.
High level.
So all of a sudden in heaven they took Malach Matat and they went in with 60 lashes of fire to show Elisha that even Matat is subject to a higher authority. Now, what did Matat do wrong? So they say Matat didn't feel anything. It was just to show Elisha. But why 60? So the tradition, the Chidor quotes this, the tradition is Bezdin down here punishes you from when you're 13. For each of those years, they give you 3 lashes. That's why you get 39. Bezdin Shalmaila waits till you're 20. So each year you get 3, so that's why he got 60. So the cheshbon of Malachim getting 60 lashes is because in heaven they wait till you're 20 years old. So the Chidah says, wow, the Chacham Tzvi, there are people who don't believe in the 20 years. He says they're wrong. He says that 20 years is a fact, it's true, it'll always be true. And he proves it based on that 60 lashes to the Malach. So the Chidah, the Maratz Chayis, the Rambam, they're supporting
Yitzchak.
it. Then you have the Chassam Sofer and the Chacham Tzvi, and Rashi and Chumash, right? Who are on the other side. Let's go to the next page.
As a side thing, wasn't Elisha ben Avur, there was something else that he...
Lots of things happened.
No, but one of the main things, he saw somebody dying, and he was a...
Yeah. So the
tzaddik.
Gemara
Didn't he
says
say the
twice.
opposite? He said, "Shaking
He gave 4 options. The first one was it's like an Ein Lameidin.
Right. No, I'm saying the third one.
The third one was you will get punished, Nolam Habodah.
Oh,
Right, the time,
right.
Here,
Right. I'll just tell you, the Gemara says twice that Elisha ben Avuya, he saw a kid going up a tree to send the mother bird away.
Shluch HaKan, that was the
And
big
his
thing.
parents told him to do it. The kid was doing 2 mitzvahs that it says, Laman Yarichun Yomecha.
And his parents.
The kid fell down and died.
died.
Another thing he saw was he saw the tongue of his close friend, Chutzpis
And the
HaMeturgeman.
ten
Was a
Asur
great
Uri
Maggid,
Malchus.
exactly, one of the 10 Malchus, and his tongue had been cut out. It was being eaten by a dog.
The tongue
And
that
Elisha
spoke
blew it.
So,
Exactly,
eloquently of
the
the Torah.
gave such pearls. So Elisha basically said, if they,
out.
he said the Abish is not keeping.
Not
He
giving
believed
his
in the
end of
Abish, but he said if the Abish is not keeping his side of the deal's out.
So he
We
fried
made
out
a
because
pact.
of the parties or because of these stories that he saw?
There's about 20 other stories that happened. When he used to sing,
That one doesn't
Greek
work, we go to
music.
the next one.
He used to go. The Gemara says it all started. He used to go around singing some of the Greek tunes of the time, were catchy tunes, and people heard him, singing the Greek tunes. The Gemara says that was it. The Gemara says started before, when he was in his mother's stomach. His mother, one time, smelled some treifa food. She very much wanted to eat it, and she was allowed to because
Right, you're
the
allowed.
woman was expecting. We give in because it could be a sakana.
Except
But
for a
because of
Kohen.
that-
Kohen's wife. Everybody, that's how all the Kohanim, that's how there might be a Kohen who says, I can go to the hospital because my wife is allowed to eat what they want, do what they want when they're pregnant. She wants me to come to the hospital with her. So the Kohen, you go into a hospital. I said to Chana, it's not going to happen. That was one of the deals before we got married. So, but
For you to go into the hospital.
that's one.
He
You
told
go
Ghana
into
he
the hospital.
never wanted.
Exactly. You don't want it.
That
Right.
and he's never going to pass her.
But if it's a lot, you're right.
But that's the mucker. That this is the place for it. That Elisha ben Avu, his mother
Has
could
an
have,
effect.
but she could have had it if she wanted it.
Right, even those mutter.
Wait, she
we
did
learned-
have it? Or
She
she
didn't
could
eat
have
it.
had it?
No,
Oh,
she
she did
ate
have
it, but she was allowed to.
She was allowed to.
Right.
Perfectly
But
like anything
the
else.
Vortiz, it was
That's
still
the mark.
tray for food.
Right.
And the Gemara says another story.
Well-
It happened by his bris.
Wow.
His father Avuya
This guy was
made a
just
huge
food.
his father Avuya made a huge celebration. He invited all the biggest rabbis of the time. 2 of them, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yeshua, during the bris, they said, we're not sitting here eating lox and cream cheese. They went to another side room and they were learning. And they got into such a deep discussion that it seemed like a fire broke out. So the father, Elisha's father, Avuya, went running. He was worried the house was going to burn down. And he sees it wasn't a real fire, just their faces were glowing, the whole room lit up. She said, wow, if that's the koyach of Torah, I want my son to be thrown into learning his whole life. So the Gemara says, it was shaloi lishma. He did it for the glitz. He did it for the for the sparkle.
That's weak.
That's
Anyhow.
tough.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's Ava. That's Ava.
Anyhow,
That's the
Sakaponim,
regular
we-
Ava that we have for Hashem.
All these things happen.
All these things happened.
They touch it all happened.
How did he get the name
One guy,
Asher?
he's a perfect
But by the way, he went so far. There came a time that the Romans were geyser that you didn't have to work on Shabbos. So what did the Yidden do? To get out of it, they would do malachas together. They should do it with a shinoi, So Minat Torah shouldn't be counted as malacha. 2 people would carry an item.
Wow.
So Elisha saw it. He told the Roman authorities, make sure each person carries his own load.
Wow.
Ivavka wanted to. He tracked down every zona he could find.
Oh, he was.
He found one.
Yes.
So
Was
one.
that Rabbi Elazar when he died?
Also him.
Unfortunately,
We have,
history repeats itself.
What do you think?
We go
Shiksa
down there and start back.
What do you think Balak said to Bilam? Is with the
Nice money.
you're not going to get him in any other way. Get with the
Shiksa.
Shiksa.
That must have a whole twist.
Well, the Gemara says, hold on. So Elisha ben Avuya, he was angry.
Lucas.
Yeah, for sure. Elisha ben Avuya, he was angry at the Eibush.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why after the Churban on Yom Kippur, he used to go with his horse, and he would go to the Kodesh Kodashim. I once heard your uncle give a whole thing about it. About why Yom Kippur he took the horse to the Kodesh Kodashim.
Why did he tell
If he didn't care, let him go do something else.
Right.
He was in inner turmoil. He couldn't. He was. He had this burning, inside of him.
What happened with the Zainas over there?
Oh, so when he met one Zaina, he went to. He found a certain Zaina, and he met her. It was actually it was on Shabbos.
He was.
Whatever.
He followed that passion.
He made it his. He made a project. He made it.
Mine's a checklist.
He made a project. So he anyway. So there's a certain Zaina. So on Shabbos, she says to him, "You're Elisha ben Avuya. You're the great rabbi." So he went and he plucked out a little tree from the ground on Shabbos. She said, you must be Acher. You must be somebody else.
Yeah.
That's how he got the name Acher.
The story spread fast.
I didn't know that.
That's it.
And how long did he live?
I knew it was Ach. I didn't know that's how he
He
got
was
this
Oh, that's
name.
what
We don't
the
know.
name of the tree.
Did he do
Rabbi
Jew
Meir,
before he died?
Rabbi Meir.
Yeah,
Rabbi Meir was a close student
Yeah,
of
the
his.
smoke stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
Rabbi Meir,
It
before he
came out, so he realized he burned.
Rabbi Meir was once walking with him. Rabbi Meir
The end of
City of
from
soaked
Shabbos.
him out for every grain of knowledge he had.
Isn't it
They
amazing?
once walking on
Even as
Shabbos,
he was doing all
walking on
this.
Shabbos
He was on
outside
a-
the city.
and he was on a horse.
And Elisha said, I've been counting the footsteps of the
You're
horse
at
while we were
2,000?
talking. We're at the Tchum. Go back. So Meir says, why don't you come back too?
Yeah.
Referring in
I think
general
that's
to
when
come
that-
back to
wasn't that
Yiddishkeit.
the-
So he told Meir,
too far gone.
I heard a voice come
Yeah,
out from
Basel.
heaven. Shuvu, bonim, all kids do
Chutz ma'acher.
Chutz ma'acher except for Acher.
Right.
But there's a word to J.B. Soloveitchik. You know what the Basco was saying? I don't want Acher to come back.
I want
Elisha ben Avuya.
Yeah. It's great.
Well, he never returned.
Yeah.
No, so right before he died, Rav Meir spoke, he cried.
And Reb Meir
He cried.
knew he
Meir
got,
felt that there was tshuva.
and he knew he
Real
did
cry.
because when he saw the smoke come out of
Right,
his
right,
gravesite,
right,
he
that was
realized
it.
that was the fires of Gehenna, which means he got
They
the
were
ability
finished.
to do tshuva.
Right.
How long did he
No,
live?
but then the smoke stopped by who?
Rabbi
And
Yechon.
that was when the torture was done.
Because when he died, the problem
was
was
done.
Interesting.
they wouldn't take him to Gan Eden because of all his Averis. They couldn't throw him in Gehenna because he had learned so
That
much
was the
Torah.
night
So he
of
was
how-
in limbo.
how
He was in limbo.
difficult Gehenna is. The smoke all the way to the Rebbe. How many years was it? lot.
A couple generations.
Rebbe has a reminder.
That he
Some
got
tzedek
smoked
was
How
there,
all
was
along.
a
long?
secha.
It's proving. No, that was that's what some said like
Right.
in
In the beginning, in the period of Arabia. Yeah.
How Gan Eden, there's some levels of Gan Eden comparable to Gehenna. but
Right,
some
right.
levels.
And that's how.
All right, let us move
So how
on.
long did he live?
I don't know.
This guy was cool though.
He
I
lived.
think.
Elisha ben
He
Avuya.
lived.
Must
It's
be.
hard.
Personality.
Could be 50. Could be
And
70
the fact
years.
that
I
Reb
don't know.
Meir hung on
Biggest
his
sinner,
every
and
word.
he
One of the
lived 70
greatest.
years.
One of the greatest.
Well,
Hung
the
on his
Kares.
every word.
Yeah, that must.
Saltebe writes in Geras HaTshuva, once the Beis Mikdash is destroyed, you can live much longer because you get chayas from Tumah. You can just keep the battery can just keep on going.
Good
I don't know
young.
if we know the exact years that he lived. I mean, he was.
Good die young, and then the.
He wasn't.
I don't know how old he was.
Big.
Fine, let's move on to the next page. All right, it's getting later. We don't have time for everything. But number 5, this is from Rabbi Yosef Engel.
Right.
Rabbi Yosef Engel was
Yeah, you should
was an incredible scholar.
You saw the kid fall.
Exactly. He was heartbroken for Jews.
And you know how many Jews saw 6 million die?
And that's a
And yet
big.
they came back.
While they were doing Shulach Hagan.
Oh,
Add that. And
He lived. He was right after the Churban.
During the Churban or right
No, it was
after?
right after the Churban. It's
I
right
feel like
after
if he was
the
during the
Churban.
Churban, he for sure wouldn't have lasted.
It's after the Churban. A couple of decades after the Churban. Fine.
Yep.
So, number of Rabbi Yosef Engel. Rabbi Yosef Engel was a chassid, not a Lubavitcher chassid. He was a Chassidish Yid in the times of the Rebbe Rashab. Mamish, a brilliant scholar. He was in his generation. The Rebbe once said that him and the Rogatchover, Mamish, stood out, and he even compared and contrasted the
He was
difference
before
between
the
them.
Rogatchover.
No, same time.
Rogatchover was during the Rebbe Rashab, but he was also...
He lived a little bit longer than
right.
Rogatchover. Lived a little longer than Yosef Engel. Rogatchover, in fact, was a year older than him.
That's it.
So
He must have passed away young.
No, it was about 60. Rogatchover lived longer, 78.
20 years.
Yeah. So Yosef Engel had some huge problems with his Balabatim. I saw once a letter that written in those times from the Balabatim, who writes that when it comes to learning, there's nobody like him. He can stick an elephant into the eye of a needle, but when it comes to community things, stay away from him. This was one of the Balabatim apparently that was not a fan of him.
Right.
But listen, since when do Rabbanim have it easy? Back upon him. So look what he writes. This is in his. He wrote a sefer on many sfarim. One of them is tidbits on Gemara. So look in the fourth line of number 5. B'shaylas atshuvas lachmei toidel u'mari basan zal. This is Rabbi Yeshaya Basan was the Rebbe of the Ramchal. That's what he's famous for. He was a master Kabbalist in Italy in the end of the 1600s. Rabbi Yeshaya Basan. In Siman Hey, Va'ayin Sham, look at the 5th line of Chidush. You know what Rabbi Yeshaya Basan says? If a ger is Nizgayer, he has 20 years till his chayav punishment. Because he comes a new kid. Ein man nish min hashamayim ad chof shana achar hageres. He has
That's
20
like a selling
years
point.
after. For 20 years, he won't get caught.
Does the Gershon is guy only do about
With time a kakotin shenoy l'domim. So you're right. You say the same thing in Bezdin. You should wait 13 years till Bezdin punishes him. For the same logic, if you're saying he's 20 years to get karas, you should 13 years. Right? And yeah, v'chein chacham. It's not just a ger. We know a chacham, a chosin, and a nasi. You know, if when a guy gets married, or a nasi, or a chacham, whenever they get their positions, when moichel him al kol avanosav,
right,
he becomes like a new person. Of dinalu revacham in Shemaya, Rabbi Shaya Basan says heaven gives them a special grant. Shaloi lahanishim ad chof shana miyom shenismanu achacham v'anasi, or v'nasa achasim. 20 years after marriage, 20 years after the nasi or the chacham gets their position, for 20 years there's no chorus, no misr b'dei shamayim. Now that you can imagine
That
that
guy can get married at 20,
Yeah, I'm still in
you have
this.
till 40.
then till 40, then he becomes a chacham till
Exactly.
60, then he becomes a nasi. He can live a whole life.
Can you imagine if the Chassam Sofer would have seen this, he wouldn't, if he threw out the whole 20 years, this is just so foreign.
Shit.
This can't be right. But I'll just tell you, he quotes the amount of Mar Mekomis this guy has.
Really?
Unbelievable. You could just read lots of, see here. But at the end, he addresses an important point. The Maharal raised a very important question. The Maharal asks, we know you only bring a carbon chatos for a sin that would have carried karas had you did it on purpose. That's the golden rule.
Right.
Correct the Maharal, we know a 17-year-old breaks Shabbos by mistake. He has to bring a carbon chatos. But why? He wouldn't have gotten karas had he did it on purpose. The rule is you only bring a chatos if you would have karas. Murder doesn't carry karas. Murder only if you do it on purpose with witnesses you get herod.
Right.
But it doesn't carry chorus if there's no witnesses. So there's no chatos.
It carries chorus.
No, it doesn't.
No,
that's what
the 17-year-old. The idea carries chorus. He's not punished.
So that's exactly what he explains. At the end of number 5, he explains it beautifully. Brings a raya from a Tosfos from a Ramban. He says like this. He says he wants to answer the kasha of the Maharal. All those that debunk the 20-year-olds business, they rely very much on this kasha of the Maharal.
Oh, but did the Maharal mean it as a kasha to debunk it?
To challenge it.
He did for this
challenge
topic.
it,
It's not that he didn't give an answer to the Maharal.
No, the questions quoted everywhere b'shem the Maharal, without an answer.
But do we have it in any of the Maharal's Sfarim or anything like that?
I haven't found it. It doesn't
Right.
mean it's not there. Okay.
Right.
But
It's unusual that the morale would just leave the question hanging, and you have.
it could be he just asked a question once. So Yosef Engel answers, when you bring a carbon chatos, it's not to pardon you from the punishment, it's to cleanse the sin. If it was to pardon you from the punishment, you'd have a kasha. Why would you bring the carbon if there's no punishment? But it's to cleanse the sin. What type of sin do you have to cleanse with the carbon chatos? A sin which is so serious that it even carries karas. So it's like Mendel said, even though right now when you're 18 you won't get karas, it's because of your age, but the Aveira carries karas when the time comes. And you need the chatos. The chatos isn't sparing you from the punishment, it's cleansing up the Aveira.
Right.
And this has all the heaviness of an Aveira of karas. So Yosef Engel
I have a
defends...
question on that. The reason why you get karas is to cleanse the sin. The fact that you don't get karas is because you don't need to cleanse the sin till 20.
I don't know that.
I'll go for
No,
kasha.
still...
No? You think that... Why don't you get karas?
You don't need to cleanse it for that severe a cleansing, but why not bring the chatas and get the dirt off you? Perhaps it's a good question. I mean,
Even
in
though
theory,
the Hashem doesn't punish less than 20, does it mean there's no Aveira at all?
right? It's like the classic of
It
tshuva.
was like by Sorah, like at 20,
if you
there
do
was no
tshuva on
sin.
something, the sin's still there, unless like you do it.
Right.
So
The
Lemafreya
whole idea
does
of
it if you do
look,
it
the
heavy.
Abish doesn't punish you, but even by a cotton, there's a discussion. Many hold that when you're older in life, you have to do tshuva for what you did when you were a kid.
Dark and I can't even see myself.
For a kid.
Why? Because you never got
In
punished.
Shulchan Aruch, the Alter brings two opinions. If you sin when you're a cotton, you got to do tshuva when you get older. In other words, just because you don't get punished doesn't mean it's not a sin.
Right. Interesting.
So even those that believe that there's no chorus less than 20, it's still an Aveira, just you're not old enough to be held responsible, it's still an Aveira. So to clean it, you bring a chatat. Alright, let's move on to number 6. We're going to finish up over here. This is a well-known tshuva of the Noida B'Yehuda.
Oh,
It's,
Yaakov Enden's friend.
He
Contemporary.
kind of suspected Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz of being a Shabsai Tzvinik. Yeah, there's some letters, very interesting. There's a whole debate of what the Noida B'Yehuda's opinion was about Yonasan Eibeshitz. Because there's letters and this and that,
That's
different
a whole
statements that
other
he said.
great parsha.
Yeah,
about
yeah.
This time period. You have the divorce of Klet and this one. And
Right,
Rabbi
right.
Yonasan
So here, the issue over here was like this: there was a kid that was born prematurely, and the kid didn't make it. They buried the kid before they did a bris. The shayla is, should they dig up the kid
Give him a
and
breast.
do a bris? So he discusses number 6. Hine im shaykh bekotten cherdes hadin. There's something called cherdes hadin. To take a body out of the ground, the body, the neshama feels that they're being judged. It's a very scary thing. It's based on a story in Nach with Shmuel and Shaul. When King Shaul was about to go to war against the Plishtim, Shmuel had just died. And Shaul was so afraid, he tried using the Urim V'Tumim, so he went to Avner's mother,
Sure.
Shaul's aunt.
And Avner was the only. She's the only one who was left alive because they killed all the other ones.
Right.
Because of Shaul, he killed all the
Yeah,
women, but Avner wanted to kill his own Mayheder and a
So she summoned Shmuel from the dead.
Yeah. He was very
And
upset.
Shaul's, when she summoned him,
Famous, it's Europe's cassette.
Is that
so
one?
the story? So there's a major debate. Reb Shmuel Bar Chafni Goin. Reb Shmuel Bar Chafni was one of the last Goinim in Bavel. He passed away in 1020 or something, about 1,000 years, almost 1022, so about 1,000 years ago. He passed away. So he was a Rosh Yeshiva in Bavel, and he was very well read. He read lots of Muslim books and everything, and he came out with some interesting ideas in Yiddishkeit. And one of them is that changing nature can only happen through a prophet. All magic is baloney. Demons are baloney. Astrology is baloney. He came out against it. And he said this whole story of Shmuel and Shaul, you can't summon the dead. The whole thing was a farce. The woman tricked Shaul. She had someone standing behind the curtain.
Which we know from the 1800s
It's like
is
a
happened all the
Shmuel
time.
can't play.
By the Achav had some false prophets. She says like this. By Achav's false prophets, somebody would come and they would ask the prophet, "Is my wife going to have a boy or a girl?" And the prophet would write something down. And then when they would come back, they would say, oh. So he would write down. Oh no, I'm sorry, I messed it up already. The prophet would say, "You're gonna have a boy," and then he would write something down. So if they came back and they said, "I had a boy," I told you.
Was it a girl?
It was a girl. I wrote down the girl. I just didn't want to tell you.
Modern day.
They would write down girl and say boy every time.
This is also Eliyahu and Navi, the whole ball. They were they had guys under the thing, writing the
Exactly, the guy
file.
waiting.
It's like these guys on stage. They write it and put it in an envelope.
Exactly. Yeah,
The
these
whole thing is
mentally.
starting to make sense to me.
Anyhow, so the Shmuel Bar Chafni says that she had somebody hiding behind the curtain, and sounded like Shmuel. The only thing is that what Shmuel told Shaul then was the future. He said, tomorrow you're going to die at war and everything.
And
So
your
he says,
son.
he says the woman was a clever woman. She knew these things would happen just based on logic. She knew that tomorrow's going to be a big war. She knew the Yidden would be outnumbered, etc. She knew it all based on logic. She whispered it to the guy behind the curtain, and the guy, said it as her. So Rav Shmuel Bar Chafni had a son-in-law, Rav Hai Gon, the famous
The
Rav Hai
Rambam
Gon.
also says all this stuff is.
He was in Marnavuk. He was a bit of a follower.
Yeah.
He says Elisha, Eliyahu, they weren't really
It's
Mechayim
like
Mason. The
those
kids
days-
never really died.
There was shader
So-
and stuff rolling around.
He says that Eliyahu never.
He said by
all
Eliyahu, he
the
says the
magic
kid
stuff
never.
is-
The kid almost died. He was close to death. Didn't really die.
Yeah, always because that's
By the
kids.
way,
wrong.
you ever do you know the
Who's that
Yoina?
guy who had a bunch of zayas? What was that?
He's gonna be going
Hold on.
looking for a kid to fall off a tree.
Rav Hai
He's
Gon.
almost there.
I can have an excuse. You want an
This
excuse?
close.
Somebody had this shirt with that guy. He told all this shit you've been believing is not true.
Rav Hai Gon was a son-in-law of Shmuel Bar Chafni. Rav Shmuel Bar Chafni Gon, he's a big guy, even though he was progressive for his times, he was a very big guy. He was the Rosh Yeshiva in Surah. Rav Hai Gon's father, Rav Sherera Gon, was Rosh Yeshiva in Pumbedisa. Two big yeshivas in Bavel. They were the centers of Torah at that time. And they made a shidduch between themselves. Rav Shmuel Bar Chafni's daughter
This was
married
1,000
Rav
years ago?
Hai. 1,000 years ago,
Yeah.
the son of Rav Sherera.
Right.
Rav Hai writes about his father-in-law, Rav Shmuel Bar Chafni, that he was very well read in the Islamic works. And in this story, actually, he debates his shver. He says, what are you talking about? He said, you think Shaul wouldn't realize such a thing's going on?
Right.
He said like this. He says, Taka, a woman magician can't bring someone back from the dead. God brought Shmuel back from the dead. He says the woman wasn't even expecting it. He says the woman was Taka
She was
planning to do
surprised.
some voodoo,
And where's
and
the-
all of a sudden Shmuel...
Where's his raya?
Because the pasuk says clearly the woman saw Shmuel and she blew it. She became extremely afraid.
Right.
Says
that's-
Rav Hai. She wasn't expecting the guy
That's in the
to
story.
show up. She wasn't
I
expecting-
always think because he was mad. He was very mad that they
Right.
schlepped him out.
The Gemara explains. I'm sorry. The Medrash. It's a Medrash. It's a Tanchuma. The Tanchuma says what the word was. Usually, when you do oiv and you bring someone from the dead,
Slow.
no, they come back upside down. Come back with their feet up.
Right, he came back.
But
right
here he
now.
came back with his head up, and that's how she knew it was Shaul. Shaul had gone incognito because officially this was outlawed to
Oh,
do
she
this.
wasn't
Right.
meant to know that it was Shaul.
Because it was outlawed.
Yeah, that's
But then
right.
she realized you must be Shaul. It must
was
be because
scared,
covered
that's right.
Amalchus that Shmuel came right way up.
That's right. That's right.
Anyhow, but Akoponim, so the Medrash says that's why she blew it. She says, "Whoa, he came right way up." Rav Hai Gon says, "No, you know why she blew it? Because she wasn't expecting the guy actually come from the dead." And yeah, the Radak, the big Meferish Shanach, he brings all these perushim.
Trick. It works.
He doesn't like any of this because he says Radak asks on Rav Hai Gon if it's true that it's bogus, but the Eibishter made it happen. So why did Shaul go to her? Shaul didn't realize it was bogus. Shaul thought it was
big
real. Doesn't make sense. So Radak says it must be you really can bring people back from the dead. It's a true art. Yeah, that's how the Radak was a big rationalist. But he says the story only makes
He
sense.
was a rationalist, and he still says
Right,
it was.
exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
It can be
Could,
done.
but you can.
It
Yeah,
can
no,
be
but the
done.
rationalists were against all that.
The Rambam,
Yeah,
right.
the Rambam was
In
the
those
main
days-
rationalist.
In those days, they had shadim roaming around. Like, what? How did he
Outside.
not believe any of this
Yeah,
stuff?
the
Not
Rambam
in
had
Bavel,
none of
not in
that.
Sudan, not in his house. He didn't have.
Not in his house.
You
He
know
never
what?
left his house. He
You know-
couldn't leave at night.
You know, it's
because-
the famous thing that when it comes to ayin horror, if you believe in
Right.
it, it can harm you. If you
Right.
don't,
There's
if
no
you don't, you
effect.
throw it out.
So he
No
didn't
effect.
believe any of it.
Then, if you don't believe in them, the attack won't affect you.
Yeah.
But it's also why you don't believe. He didn't believe because he felt that the Abel should never give such koyach to Tumah. He felt only a Navi from the hand of the Eibishter. When you
His
have that, exactly. They say that about the Rambam.
Yeah.
The Rambam once was brought. They say the Rambam was brought to a house of shadim. When he came, there were no shadim.
Exactly.
In front of the Rambam, they didn't exist.
They didn't exist. Yeah.
They say such a story.
I've heard that.
Bilam. What does he say about
Is that what
Bilam?
the movie's about?
No,
All these Yiddish
Bilam was a Navi.
making
This
it
whole,
there.
it was the hand of Hashem.
if you believe it, then you
Fine. Okay. Let's. I gotta finish up. I'm gonna finish up.
Right.
So we're getting. So in number six. Number six.
That's the original one, I think.
They know the
Can't
Yehuda.
remember.
The Nadav Yehuda. So he wants to know, can you pull out this kid from the ground?
Right.
So he wants to know. Oh, so when Shmuel came up with Shaul, Shmuel was screaming. He said, "Shaul, why'd you take me out of the ground?" The Gemara in Chagiga says that Shmuel was sure he was being judged for something, and he actually schlepped Moshe Rabbeinu with him to be protect him. So there's something called Cher de Sadin. Because of that, you never move a dead body. You never move. It's actually saw two people. That's another thing the Gemara said. So Cher de Sadin. So the shaila is, does that apply to a kid? So look at the third line. Uladaiti, I believe. Gam loy mistaber. It doesn't make sense. Shelo yeshum ayna shemayim ala adam kaidem es mishana. The verse like this: if less than 20 years old, there's no punishment, there's no sin, then you could take the kid out of the ground and give the bris milah.
Right.
The kid won't be afraid. The neshama won't be afraid he's being judged. He's not responsible for anything. Right. So the Rebbe says the whole thing at 20 years doesn't make sense. He says, "V'nim sa'elam hefker." You can kill anyone, right? Till your 20th birthday, you can just kill whoever you want. Kishlo yisham eidim. If it's not
Nobody told me he was 18.
In fact, till you're 20, be menayif. The last night before your 20th birthday, chaparan.
Punishment and not being able to do
So he says, "Elamai, what's the pshat?" He says the pshat's like this. Uladaiti hakavon is like this. He's going to learn like the third option of the Chacham Tzvi. In this world, Hashem won't punish you before.
But in the next world, you get it.
Achar misa, kol ma'asim kol mechayev. Once you come to Klal Das, afilu lo'onis ha'pu'utas. Even when you were a kid, if you know it's not very, you'll have to be responsible.
This is a kid before 8 days old.
Eventually?
Hold on. Yes, you're saying like this. It sounds like you're saying like the third word to the Chacham Tzvi. Ba'olam hazeh, while you're alive, Hashem won't punish you for what you did when you were below 20.
Right.
But when you in the next world, you're going to be chayiv to answer for everything. Not just below 20, you can say even below bar mitzvah. As long as you had das.
How does that?
He didn't say bar mitzvah. He said bar mitzvah. He said
Right, but the idea of this world and the next world is the same idea. And that's what he says. That's why in Gemara and Shabbos, when Yitzchak said, till 20 don't punish, Yitzchak's talking about the people that are alive. So for that, Yitzchak says, Hashem, when they're alive, you don't punish them when they did less than 20. But for La'achar Misa, there you're chayiv to for everything. The only thing is, here we're talking about little babies. Look at the next paragraph, Va'omna, on the left-hand side, calls it a katan that at least reach the Klal Das. And he could do mitzvahs. But a katan ben shana, if it's 1, 2, or 3, it's not shayach klal, it's not shayach cher de sadin.
Right. Even later.
So then you could move the kid. But he said, according to the Mukubalim, and also some of the mechkrum, some of the philosophers agree that there's Gilgul Neshamas. So a 2-year-old kid, so then a 2-year-old kid, if you pull out the body, you know what the Neshama is going to worry about? What I did in the last life. Im came b'chol katan is cher de sadin for in the first Gilgul.
That's great.
There's also nivel moving a dead body is embarrassing for the mace. Fine. So he ends up saying like this, depends. If it's right, he said, listen, v'lochein l'daiti, about 8 lines from the bottom. According to my opinion, imu take if it's right after the burial. So the body, there's no nivel, if you move it, it won't be embarrassing for the deceased. You should open up the kever and give the bris. Because mimanavshich, if he's not a gilgul, so then the neshama has nothing to worry about. There's no cher de sadin because he's not punishable for anything. And if he is a gilgul, he wants the bris. He's going to say.
He's going to need it.
Then he's going to get up by tchiyas hamesim, either for chayolam haba or chas v'shalom l'diroin means to be embarrassed. Some people when you get up by tchiyas hamesim, the judgment day. The Gemara Sanhedrin speaks about the great day of judgment by tchiyas hamesim. He definitely wants to be
His whole-
he wants to have that bris milah.
Somebody's
But-
special was a Gilgul because a Gilgul means you were something chasar and you had to come back.
Right, and it's for the toim of his kid to have the bris.
Yeah.
But if it's a couple days after the death, don't do it because it's not nice for the body.
Really?
But upon the Nadav Yehuda says, what's the deal with 20 years old? In this world, you don't get punished for less than 20. But in the world to come, you will. But then the kasha is, Nadav and Avihu will punish in this world. Why?
Right, we're still left with the
Right.
Rashi.
So let's answer the question. How about that?
How old was
So-
the beginning? None of you were how old?
The Zohar says they were teenagers. That's why it calls them Bnei Aaron. They were still under jurisdiction of their father.
And they got
They were
killed.
that holy at that age?
Yeah,
They weren't.
yeah.
They got burnt there.
No. Moshe told Aaron, they're greater than me and you.
Yeah. And he
They
says,
made-
now I
they
see.
They tried to
Hashem
make him
meant-
feel better because he wasn't able to mourn his kids. So he told them, oh, they're such great
Because of
kids.
nefesh. They were so high.
I don't know. They went in there, they got burnt because they did things wrong.
Tzaddik.
It was either because they brought a carbon, either they didn't listen to Moshe, either they came in their shorts, their Bermuda shorts, or they did what's called. It had nothing to do with because they were that high.
Don't stand
I
next to him
I
when
like
that
your
ground opens
I
up.
like your bird.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, let's finish
Last
up.
night-
Besides that, they were the nephews of the king.
Last night we were learning
Yeah.
Seidah, and
Right.
we have a shir every night, and the Gemara was talking about all these psukim that the people in Tzriim were saying. So
Yeah.
my uncle Yossi says, obviously it's exaggerating. The mitzvahs weren't
It's the
actually
same argument every year.
saying psukim that didn't happen yet. The Torah wasn't given yet. So my uncle Mati's like, no, you got it. You obviously don't believe that, Mati, right? And he mentioned that, like, he says, I'm not going to be near you when the door opens up. I don't want to be on the Zoom call when everyone on the Zoom call is going to go.
That's great.
That's why it's-
That's great. That's classic. Hey.
Fine. Number 7. So what? So we.
Or Shimshon's shoulders. The 18.
Yeah.
Doesn't believe it. It's
Yeah.
not possible.
That
How?
they're 50 hours or whatever.
That's an example. Yeah.
In that duration, you
Lots
think?
of things. Yeah, the Maral writes lots of these numbers in Gemara.
Now, our rights put Maram in the Golem.
No, Maral's a believer. He's a believer.
No, he says the Gemara never meant it literally.
Right, there's
No,
People that think Maram never made the Golem. That's also.
most
Yeah,
people
yeah,
say
yeah.
never made it.
a lot of people.
Most is there's many there's most arrows point that he didn't make it, but the Rebbe's our tradition is that he did.
Absolutely, and Leonard Nimoy
What
did
the
it
hell is the
perfect.
And the proof to that is Leonard Nimoy.
And he's a Kain.
What arrows point to
The
not?
proof
not,
is that because for
Most
400
people
years no one ever heard of it. The story only came up 100 years ago.
She's saying, where did it
Nobody-
suddenly come from?
Not just that. The Chacham Tzvi discusses a whole tshuva. Can you use a golem for a minion? The Chidah discusses. They all discuss it, and they all speak about the golem that Eliyahu Baal Shem made.
Right,
No
they
one
didn't
ever
say Gemara,
mentioned.
which is-
Right.
No, 500 years ago. The times of Maral, but no
Nobody
one
ever
ever
mentioned,
mentioned
right,
Maral
that's
made a
the big
golem.
problem.
It never said anywhere.
Right.
Even all those that are discussing it, they mention Eliyahu Baal Shem's golem. No one ever mentioned the Maral.
One of the
Well,
original
it was,
Bashams.
yeah, big guy 500 years ago.
He
But the
before
point
the
is,
Maral?
same time as the Maral, in the
So at the same
1500s,
time,
same
Maral
time.
was two
Before the
girls.
Malshem
Maral
Maral
was
Kain.
Shem and the Marals.
Also, same thing.
By the way, they
So
weren't
There's
the
also
first
one
one.
What's
with the
today?
Gemara,
You said the
Yeah,
Maral used them for minions. What's the?
No, they
No,
were
they're
referencing
discussing
the
the
person who
klal,
made the
the
famous
idea.
Golem. Why didn't they talk about the Prague Golem?
No one
That's the
ever
famous
mentioned.
Golem.
No, we have a document. Reb Shlomo ibn Gabirol. He lived
Yeah,
in
we spoke
Spain.
about
In the,
him.
right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah, a lot.
right. So he made a golem. He needed a cook. He made it a girl. He made a golem, a girl to cook for him in the kitchen.
He also made a Golem?
Corn make
He made a
cook.
golem, sure.
Female cook.
Female
Years
cook.
though, we're talking about Elon Musk's golem.
He made
They're already
a
talking about it.
You have a cook.
He made a golem for because there wasn't any Cubans.
In Seinfeld. The Roman
Anyhow,
cigar.
so let's look at number 7.
But we hold that there is one, Mendel.
What does that mean? Go to the shul in Prague, go see. freaking
guys-
golem.
So wait, what did they
Nobody-
say? What did the
nobody's gone there.
what did the
Nobody's gone there.
Ibn
People
Gabriel
have gone there
say?
and they haven't come out.
Story you did.
No, he made a golem.
Ah, he made the golem, so they were talking about
So
it.
Go there, big talker.
The Ibn Ezra.
I will fly you out there.
The Nazis stuck his
Yeah,
Die. He's gonna go
The
there.
Ibn Ezra, Avram Ibn Ezra, was a big rationalist.
Go in there. He's not gonna
He
go in
met
there.
Rabbeinu
No
Tam
way.
in
The
France.
story with the
He's not even
Nazis.
getting into
And he
that
took him into a
town.
little room at night.
So scared.
And he said,
talker.
the secret to Sefer Yetzirah, and the Ibn Ezra created a living being.
He was a rationalist.
Yeah, and he did it. And
And he
told
himself
Rabbeinu
did it.
Tam, look at the power that the Eibishter placed in the letters of the Torah.
Right.
And then he sucked the life force out of it.
And then he went on being a rationalist,
That's
which by the way could be the same thing with the Rambam. They say he was a rationalist
You want to
because
know the story?
that's Mer Nevuchim.
About 450 years ago, the most colorful person that ever lived in Yiddishkeit, according to some, Rabbi Yehuda Arya of Modena, known as the gambling rabbi. He was a rabbi of Venice. He didn't wear a yarmulke. He lost all his money in gambling. He ran the theater of the city, but he was a brilliant Talmid Chacham. It's a very fascinating personality. But he wrote lots against Kabbalah. He didn't believe in Gilgulim, but he wrote an incredible autobiography. And he writes, I didn't believe in Gilgulim. Gilgulim, please. He says, one day, a woman comes running to me. She has a baby boy, 6 months old, teetering between life and death. Can I please come and help? So I ran to the house. I saw a little baby, a couple months old.
It's talking to me.
And I saw all of a sudden the baby says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Zechon, and the baby closed the eyes and died. And he writes about it. He says, seeing is believing. He says, once you see that, he says, you can't do it.
That's great. That's great.
Anyhow, so let's finish up. Number 7 is like this. The Gemara in Bracha speaks about when Shmuel was a little boy, 2-year-old boy, his mother brought him to the Mishkan of Shiloh to give him as a gift to the Eibishter.
He was weaned.
And while he was there, right away, he passed into Shiloh. They were looking for a kohen to shecht, a korban. And little baby Shmuel, he's 2 years old, he said, you don't need a kohen to shecht. Right. Anyone could shecht. After the shechita, they're taking the blood. Anyone could shecht.
The blood has to be
Nobody
the
else
kohen.
can do that.
Yeah,
right.
It's all up in
So anyhow, look what this is. So this is from the tzlach to say he's also the Nadav, the same guy, Yechezkel Landau. But what happened was like this.
The tzlach is the Nadav.
Same guy. The Nadav is Chuvas. This is his Chidushim on Gemara. So the tzlach, he wants to know. The Gemara in Bracha says that Eli wanted to kill Shmuel. He says, Shmuel, you're right, but you're passing in front of me. Eli HaKoyim was your Chayiv Misha. He wanted to kill the kid.
2-year-old.
Wow.
And so his mother Chana was there. She said, please, hey, just a baby. I daven for him. So Eli said, no, I'll give you another kid even better. She said, no, El Hanar Hazei Spalalti. I want this kid.
Oh,
not
the song.
Right.
That's where the verse comes from. On RSA as well.
In response to that?
Yeah. It was the Pashas of the Psukim is Shistam telling Eli. By the way, this is the baby that. But the Gemara says that this was her response to Eli trying to kill the kid.
Wow.
So Frek the Slach, he's 2 years old. What's Eli trying to kill him for? So look what he says. Look at the second last line.
Right, not high.
Look at the second last line. According to the tremendous chachma, he deserved to be punished. Even though he's a katan, is not bar einshin, but zeh shechakim tuv, because he was very smart, he's a bar einshin lefi chachmasei.
So that's
when you're extremely brilliant,
right? That's a special case.
Right. So where's the source of this? I found it in number 8. This is called Hadar's Kanim. It's Toisos on Chumash in Parshas Vayeshev. Yehuda had 2 sons, Er and Einan. Er marries Tamar. Er dies because of Zerah Levatola. Einan does the same thing. He marries Tamar. He has Zerah Levatola because neither of them wanted Tamar to get pregnant. Er didn't want because he didn't want Tamar to lose her beauty. And Einan didn't want because he knew that if he had a kid, the kid's going to perpetuate the name of his brother. It wouldn't be considered his kid. So they were both punished. So
they didn't know.
The Shaila is they were both kids. They were 8 years old.
Oh, really?
What?
They were
Tamar's
kids.
husbands?
They were kids.
And how old was she?
Also a kid. You had an insight. She said, Katana, I'm a kid. So wait a second.
I heard that one.
They were kids. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says back in the day, people had kids when they were 7 years old.
Yeah, but that was
kids.
pre.
I thought you
those
were
years
gonna
people
ask-
lived to 1,000 years too.
No, the times of the Shvatim.
I
Yeah,
thought you
but
were
still,
going to
this
ask
kid is
why
7.
did Yoda want to give her to Shayla? If Shayla's a katan wouldn't die.
No, it was his last kid.
No, I'm not asking that. The Shal is why did Hashem?
So how old?
Hashem gave Misa to.
No, but clearly the first two
but they were
died.
kids.
First two could
So who asked this question?
They're also kids.
The
I
Chizkuni.
want to take that chance.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll go for cash.
Exactly. The Chizkuni.
No, that's the question.
That's the
The
question.
Chizkuni wants to know how. The Chizkuni asks it, then he doesn't have an answer. He said the Chizkuni was a Rishon. He said he doesn't understand. How are they held
Why
responsible?
were they done? Why did they die?
I'm saying, how
So-
old was she?
Where do
when
we know
Yehuda
that they
slept
were
with her?
kids? I'm saying, is there any raya for that?
No,
Many
that
years
source?
later.
Yeah.
That was how many years later?
Is there any source
many.
for where does it say that they were kids? Like,
I don't know. It could be
In
10,
Seder
11,
Olam.
5. When Yehuda met her on the side of the
Seder
road.
Olam,
Yeah,
Seder
we never did
Olam.
the special thing, gave the stick, told the this. It was a
Elisha!
Creating Mashiach, the seeds of Mashiach. Planting the seeds of Mashiach.
And this is where we all come from.
The Medrash says that Yehuda didn't want. A Malach pushed him in. A Malach pushed him in.
It was the response.
All of
It
these,
was
they never did anything
It was
else.
Yehuda's response. He says, you were right. That's the moment.
Anyhow.
Yeah,
So-
so he got busy.
I gotta go. So listen. So Tosfos
But you didn't
actually,
answer me. How many years apart was that?
it's a big machlokes how many years apart that was. It's very unclear. It's a huge machlokes how that whole story developed. But let's leave that.
Okay.
Top line of number 8. V'hadar minon ein bezen shel ma'alim anishin ad esrim. Frek Tosfos, Hashem doesn't punish till you're 20. So how did Erva Einon, it says in Seder Olam they were kids, 8, 9 years old, so how were they killed? Hainu, he says, I'm sorry, I got it the wrong way around. Look at the next paragraph of Vayomos. It's meant to come first. Arminon b'Seder Olam, the loy hoyo el b'nei ches, they were 8 years old.
Yeah.
The afal pisha loy bol the clouded gimel shemai, they weren't even 13.
Yeah.
Nenshu. Now Tamar, I don't understand, says Tosfos, Arminon ba'ama we say everywhere, ain bedel shemalim anishin until you're 20. The Omer of Yehuda HaChassid. Yehuda HaChassid is one of the, he lived in Germany, about 1150 to 1217 or something. He was one of the great, he was extremely great. The Alter Rebbe once said, it's amazing how someone who's a human was able to understand the things that he understood.
What did he write?
He wrote Sefer Chassidim, and the famous Tzavois, his last will and testament. Tzavois of Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, of two brothers not marrying two sisters, of someone not marrying his niece, and this and that.
You need a lot of stuff that we're bound by now.
About cutting down trees.
Closing windows.
Yeah, ovens,
fireplaces.
exactly. Yeah.
Ovens.
Yeah,
you don't-
Shadim, because of Shadim, the
You don't
fireplaces.
You don't polish shoes
the
before
last-
you
Yeah.
Shame.
So about he said you shouldn't polish shoes and then travel.
That's more
The Alter Rebbe said, in order for me to explain this,
No.
I would have to write a work
There's no
bigger than the
trade.
whole Shalah,
Right.
just to explain this one thing.
It's an item.
not to
Of
fly a
how-
single engine plane, that was him.
No.
Wait, say what again? That what?
You shouldn't polish your shoes and then travel.
That was the Rebbe Chassid,
Alter
yeah.
Rebbe said, for me to explain it, I'd have to write a work bigger than the entire Shalah, just to explain that one thing.
No way.
Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, actually, there's a horrific story. Rabbi Yehuda Chassid had a couple students. They were traveling through a forest. They were traveling, I think, for a simcha, and there were tons of bandits in the forest. So they used a Kabbalistic shame, to protect themselves. When they reached town, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid told them, "You used Kabbalah tricks to save yourselves." He says, you basically lost your Elam Haba. The only way you got to go back through the forest, and this time, no shamus. They went through the forest. They didn't use any tricks. They were captured. They were all murdered. All of the students. The whole group. Yeah.
They polish their shoes. It's the same as serving Mati in the airport. He's flying with Baruch Tuchman. So Baruch Tuchman comes to the airport, going to Ukraine or whatever. Comes to the airport, he's looking home for Mati, can't find him. Well, he sees Mati on
Susie.
the chair getting his shoes polished. What are you doing? So Mati goes, what's wrong? He goes, you don't polish before you want to put him, you crazy.
He didn't get on the flight with him.
So Mati goes in, I'm not worried, you're on my flight, you're not polishing your shoes, I'm fine.
It was the opposite. Baruch said he's not flying.
Baruch probably didn't
I
go.
think Baruch didn't
He's
go.
fine now, he went at the end of the day.
Yeah?
It's really funny.
Anyhow, so let's go back. Yehuda Chassid said,
Who does it go after?
"Ein hadover tolu b'shanim ela b'das u'b'machshava." He says, when the Eibush punishes a person, it's not based on the years, it's your personal understanding. He says, yes, you can have a guy pachas mib'shanim,
Short talk, yeah.
odom b'das l'ro l'tayv. You can have someone who's 8 years old and very savvy.
Shmuel.
Zeh nemar ki kol levav is
Shmuel.
derish Hashem v'chol yetz machshavos.
Shmuel.
And that's for hanefesh hachatas uksiv ki yetz levav
Good
urav.
answer.
Even for when you're a nar, from when you're a kid. Uksiv ki ham. All right, fine. Look at the v'gam shloima lo yoy yoshmi ben Yalef. Shloima HaMelech was under by mitzvah. Kisham and David told him v'avdeya b'leiv shalom ki kol levavis Now go back to the paragraph above it. Derish Hashem.
What does that mean?
Shlomo was under bar mitzvah when his father David said, "Serve God with your full heart," because the Eibusha seeks out the hearts. He was telling Shlomo at that point, God already expects from you because you're very clever. The hard this that we say aim bezen shamayla magic until you're 20. That's an exera gedola when he judges the whole umma achas b'yachid. He judges everybody together. Then he counts from 20 years and above, and he judges the ummah based on the roiv. And so too in the future, the Gemara shows by Yitzchak. Yitzchak's davening for the Yidden collectively. So he's going to mention 20 and above. Avo Yachid, but a Yachid, the Eibusha judges each person according to his mental stamina. Afilu pachas ben Yud Gimel, even less than 13, they'll punish you. L'chein l'toiva, so too for mitzvahs. You'll get rewarded for things you did when you were 3 or 4.
So that's
the Vart Rabbi Yehuda Achos did, and it's like that Tzlach says in number 7, that Beden Shalmata Taka has the bar of 13. That's just how it works. Beden Shalmata, there's no years. It's all about where you are as a person. When it comes to a nation, it's
right.
20.
When you're looking at it as a collective unit, it's 20.
Even
That's
though
what
you think
Yitzchak was
you
doing.
think it should be 13.
That's it.
Hashem said no. Collectively, it does 20.
And that's what Yitzchak was talking about. He was
Right,
talking about the
right,
collective.
right. Exactly.
And that's it. Aaron's kids were.
Oh, but when it comes to individuals, Aaron's kids, with all of your kindness, they were grosser.
But
But you want to hear a cute thing? Moshe told Aaron that I thought that either you or I would get punished, and the Eibishter would sanctify the Mishkan through us. Now I see these guys are greater than us. Nadav and Avihu were two halves of the same soul, and they were nisgalgul into Shmuel. Shmuel was a gilgul of them. That's why we say Shmuel was equal to Moshe and Aaron, because Shmuel was Nadav and Avihu.
I thought
And
they
Nadav
were
and Avihu
killed
together into Shimshon.
No,
To
it's
Pinchas.
for
It's
that
all
one
true.
moment that he died.
It's all true. It's all true.
It's part of it. That's
And
And into
Yeah.
Shimshon,
A lot of
maybe
Gilgul.
Parshas Nozah, and into Shimshon, and into different parts of their souls. There's Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Each one
If
ended
they
up
were in
somewhere
Eliyahu,
else.
There's
then
levels
they
in
never
each.
died after
You
that.
gotta figure it out.
My father always says the Torah.
Anyhow, so that's the answer.
Almost
That's the
everything.
answer.
What are the other Tzaras that are being left?
Almost thought of that.
Other than the house and the shoes.
spectacular.
Every time we, you know, they almost figured
Right,
it
you
all out.
shouldn't